And I invite you to begin lying down on your mat in constructive rest position. And constructive rest position is where you're lying on your back and your knees are bent. And it's very similar to if you're going to start out in bridge pose. This allows your core to stay relaxed, which is very helpful for your breath. And upon arriving in constructive rest, take a few moments to just be here, just lie down. And invite things to slow down. If you find your mind busy or wandering, just let it be busy, let it wander. And feel your breath. Feel every breath in and out. As you begin to deepen each inhale. And slow down, smoothing out each exhale. The more you slow down, the more it gives you a chance to tune in. To feel your body on this earth. And from each deeper inhale today, slower, smoother exhale. Use your next in-breath to orient to your prop space. And find your strap. Bringing your strap to the ball of your right foot. as you bring your right leg up into a stretch. If straightening your left leg creates back pressure in your back, any kind of discomfort or pain in your back, keep your knee bent. You can take your left leg out of the constructive rest position so long as there's no back discomfort or back pain. As you continue to breathe, deeper breaths than what you might do unconsciously. Slower, smoother exhales. As you slow things down. Slow things down so that you can tune in. And sense the stretch in the back of your right leg. If the stretch gets intense, it can begin to happen somewhere around the next 30 seconds. It does not need to get intense. In yin practice, the intensity comes from time. But as you tune in to the unwinding of tension in your leg, if some tension has begun to let go, you've already begun to feel the muscle let go of the tension it's holding. Feel welcome to give a little more tug on the strap. So you can once again move into the edge of the stretch. And as you deepen your breath, as you slow things down with each smooth exhale. Continue to sense the back of your leg. How the tension unwinds. And take 6 more breaths. And just a few more easy breaths. And with your next exhale, gently let your right leg down to the floor, coming to Shavasana, or if that's straining on your back, come to more of a constructive rest position. And take a moment of pause to sense and notice one leg may feel longer than the other. You may even notice a difference between how your right back and left back are on the floor. Take 2 more breaths. And then switch sides, bringing your strap to the ball of your left foot. The playlist should be kicking in by now. So if you need to adjust the volume mix, if my voice is too quiet compared to the playlist or vice versa, feel welcome to do that. And as you begin this, like any yin pose, start with an amount of pull. And sometimes it can get straining to your hands to pull on the strap over time. You may wish to wrap the strap around your hands. Begin with an amount of pull that stretches your leg, but not so much that your leg fights back at all. Just enough that you can sense an unwinding of tissue. Should the tissue begin to unwind more, you may want to give the strap a little bit more tug. And whether you bring your attention to finding just the right amount of pull as tension unwinds, or you focus your breath on a smooth exhale release. Sometimes through the mouth is a good way to feel this. Or you begin to focus into the back of your leg so that you can feel the tensions and how they may be beginning to slide open. All of these are great approaches to yin yoga. Breath, attention, embodiment. The technique, however, matters less than one simple thing. If you do one simple thing in the stretch, slow things down. 10 breaths. Taking 3 more breaths down. Each breath like a wave in the ocean that just, it's like the easiest massage through your body. On your next exhale, gently let your left leg down to the ground. Taking a pause here in Shavasana. We call this an integration moment, which is to be still, to feel, experience. This lets your nervous system integrate the change. Without this time, the nervous system could hold an old model of itself and easily bring back this tension. So we let our nervous system experience, feel the change. And as we continue this process today of slowing things down, we also recognize the nervous system can very easily get in a rut. And so it is helpful at times to not just do yin, but to add a little bit of spice, a little bit of activity. And so deepening your breath Gently bring up your knees and roll your way onto your side. And very gently, nice and easy, begin to make your way up to standing. And from standing, feel your breath. And with your next inhale, float both arms up in the air. On your next exhale, let both arms float down. Almost as if your breath were filling up a pool of water and your arms float on a rising tide. And your buoyant arms on your exhale float down on a falling tide. Beginning to get active in our body. Just enough that our nervous system will rejoice when we come back to surrender. Breathe with potency. And on your next inhale, the next time that you float both arms up in the air, grab a hold of your right wrist with your left hand and take a side bend over to your left. So you're opening up your right side body. Notice the stretch in your right side body. Those muscles between the ribs, there are places where we habitually stretch, but then there are places we need to consciously lift to get the stretch more fully in between the ribs. Lift for those places and take 3 deliberate breaths. Almost as if each breath we're filling up your right side body. And then on your exhale, come back to center, relax both arms down. We'll pause in a gentle standing, relaxed position. We call this samasthiti. Feel, experience, let the nervous system integrate. And use your next inhale to let both arms float. Grabbing a hold of your left wrist with your right hand, take a side bend over to your right. Some spots in between your ribs will habitually get a stretch. Those spots are good. But then almost like you got a little car jack in those areas where you don't quite feel as much stretch between your ribs, begin to bring space in those places. And take 5 full breaths into your left ribs, into the muscles in between your ribs. So each breath, we're soaking into the muscle tissue. Flood the tissue with your breath. And then use your next exhale to come back to center. Relax both arms down. We'll pause here. Samasthiti, which is to stand with a tall midline, but relax the rest of your body. And so you can soften your face, relax, soften your glute muscles off the glute bones, and relax your thigh muscles off the thigh bones. For our primary practice today is to let go. To release what we are holding subconsciously. me do this by slowing things down. Feeling your body. Once again, bring yourself back to your props. And this is where you can use a towel if you don't have a blanket. We're going to take the blanket and roll it up very firm. So make a roll. Now, some of you know what's going to happen here, that we're getting into this calf stretch. So you can adjust the size of this based on the width. Like the less wide it is, the thicker it is, right? That will make it thicker. Or you can unroll it somewhat if this is too thick. But what you're going to do is place the roll down on your mat. I would suggest having a block or two within your immediate reach as you do this. And step onto the roll with the ball of your foot, your heels on your mat. If you need to adjust later because it's a little too intense or it's not quite getting the stretch you want, you can always adjust later. But once you're on the roll, ball of your foot on the roll, heel down, inhale both arms up, and on your exhale, come into a forward bend. It's going to begin with some degree of intensity. As a yin pose, ideally, you are not at this point feeling like you might have to grin and bear it. If you are at that point right now, I'll suggest taking the roll down a little bit. As the initial tension begins to unwind through the backs of your legs, fully inhale. Each exhale smooth, like a wave washes over your body. You can keep it as simple as this. With each wave of breath. You are welcome to shift the stretch by shifting your weight. If you shift your weight more forward, more back, the blocks can give you a little bit of control over where you place your weight. It will change the stretch. Likely there's a place where you can place your weight where there's a sweet spot. Now, if you would like more stretch, and there's no necessary reason for more, but if you're feeling like, yeah, it would be good to get deeper and more stretch here, you can get that more stretch by lifting your right leg up in the air behind you, which will put more stretch into your left leg. This is an option. If you do go into the one-legged variation, you will likely want to have some blocks to help balance. So that you can continue to simply be in the stretch. And if you are working with this one leg variation, go ahead and switch sides. especially if you're working with a bit of an edge. Notice your breath. Your breath will tend to get faster and shallower the more your nervous system feels intensity. Breathe deeper. It's sometimes helpful to breathe out through the mouth to make that wave-like breath. And on your next exhale, gently bring your left leg back down and find an easy way to work off the roll. You may wish to bend your knees a little bit as you work the props away. And as we will do in every yin pose in this practice, after every yin pose, we take what's called an integration pose. So you can come to any choice of integration pose. Shavasana is one. You can stand tall in samasthiti, standing relaxed and relaxing your glute muscles off the glute bones and your thigh muscles off the thigh bones. Two other choices are child's pose and seated meditation. And now make your way to a meditative seat. You might check in your meditative seat. Anyway, it may feel different after opening up your legs. Feeling the anchor of your legs to the earth. Sit tall as if a silk thread from your tailbone through the top of your head were lengthening you. And everything else can relax and be soft. Letting each breath flow in and out. And as we get into the heart of today's practice, feel welcome to bring your hands to heart center. If you would like to join me in one Om, you're welcome to join or simply listen. From your next inhale, There's often this moment of silence after the Om that we can enter into. If there's one place we are moving today, it is this, to that which is most simple. And paradoxically, most profound. If you wish, a bow of your head to your heart as a symbol of transition. And we will make our way to the floor into a reclined bound angle, for which I will give you the option for a back bend. So let me demo both of these first. So the first option is for reclined bound angle. And for this, you'll have the soles of your feet together and your knees wide. It is helpful to have a block or something to put against your legs so that your nervous system can relax into the pose and relax into the blocks. If you don't have the blocks there, the nervous system tends to get a little nervous because there's all this free range that might injure it, right? We want to be able to relax into it. You just move the blocks at any time that you need so that you can have more stretch if that's what you want. We're going to be in this for about 4 minutes. Now, this is the default pose, which you can play with the blocks or bolsters on the outside. Now, if you want to make this more of a back bend, the classic position for this is with your bolster or your stack of towels to place right at your low back and relax back like so. So if you have questions on the props, again, this is interactive today. So please take advantage of the fact that this is interactive, that we can parse these things out. And come to a place where you are feeling a stretch. More important, the inner thigh stretch than the back bend. But not so intense that there's any bracing. If you do feel bracing, allow it in, allow or embrace the surrender of that bracing. If you find it difficult to surrender the bracing, give yourself a little more support in the props. You may breathe low if you want something to do with your breath. Though it may be better to just allow it to be simple. Just you, your waves of breath, and the ground. For 8 more breaths. When you allow things to be simple, you can tune into what is most natural. As you take one or two more breaths, a key to yin transitions is that we never want to be engaging the muscles we were just stretching. So to come out of this pose, place your hands on your outer thighs and use your arm strength to close your legs in like a book. And then transition to a moment of integration. And that may be at first giving a little wiggle to your hips so that they can reintegrate, not feel too weird. And then come into your choice, Shavasana, constructive rest, or seated meditation. Pause to feel. There's nothing you have to do to connect to your innateness. Allow it to emerge. Begin to gently work your way out of your current integration. And we're going to use a padding. So a blanket is best probably. You don't want it to be too thick. So a blanket or some other kind of padding. We're going to wedge it in between the floor and the wall. So it'll look like that. This is going to be a quad stretch, which is going to be a little bit intense if you have tight quads. So you'll want to work into this slowly. But we'll start from fours and we'll work our way back. So I know I'm at the edge of the picture here, but hopefully you can see this. So my knee, and we'll start with the right knee. My knee, my back knee here, is in between. It's right in the crease between the floor and the wall, padded by the blanket being on the floor and a little bit up the wall, which provides this layer of cushioning. Now, this may be very intense as a quad stretch, in which case you'll want to stay right here and stretch right here. If you want more stretch, the way you'll do that is take your foot up so that you're in a lunge. So now I've got my foot up in a lunge with my knee in between the wall and the floor. And you can increase it by coming more up as your leg is pinned up against the wall. So if you have questions on that, please feel welcome to throw me in chat. I can show you in better detail on my other camera if you would like that. Bring your padding, blanket, towel, whatever it might be, to the wall. Have it a little bit up the wall is helpful, so that way you don't have your knee scraping up against it. And you're going to place your right knee in the crevice of the floor in the wall. Now, if you glance back, once you have your leg up the wall, glance back and make sure the center of your heel to your second toe is in a line perpendicular to the floor. It tends to torque the knee a little bit if it's at an angle. Now, quite possibly, this is already going to be plenty of stretch. If it is, you're doing perfect yoga. If you would like more stretch, you can start to bring your left foot up in more of a lunge position. And you don't have to. You can simply stay with the stretch that you have. If you get any knee discomfort or pain in this, I'm going to suggest coming off the wall. Do more of a traditional lunge on your mat. If you decide to go further, move slowly. Whether it's bringing your leg out into a lunge, or if you decide to bring your hands up to your thigh, or even hands up the wall. Move nice and slow. We'll hold for 8 more breaths. Yin yoga can be intense. So if you're getting intensity, continue to breathe. Breathe down to your right waist. You do not have to, but if you would like the stretch to go deeper, isometrically pull your right knee forward against the floor. Three more breaths. Now, very important, when you come out of this, come out the opposite order you went down. So it'll be tempting to want to leap off the wall. That's a good way to potentially injure yourself. So if you're in the lunge, bring your knee down to the floor first and then crawl your way out of the way. If you have any lingering sense of disorientation, you may wish to wiggle your hips out a bit. And as you're ready, we're going to switch sides and bring your left knee into the crease between the wall and the floor. Now, each side may be different, so monitor it for each side. Your foot is up the wall. It's generally a little bit outside of center of your glute. Basically, if you're making a straight line up the wall with your shin bone, and that line continues from the center of your heel up through your second toe, you have the alignment. Now, whether you're paused here in the stretch or you are slowly working your way up as your quad muscle begins to open a little bit more. Continue to breathe deeply, whether this is very intense or feels like a good stretch, right? Deep tissue, you never quite know which way it's going to go. Continue easy, steady breath. Breathing toward your left waist or below your waist. Ten more breaths. If you would like to take the stretch deeper, you can do so by isometrically pulling your left knee forward against the ground. As you take each soothing exhale, wave-like breath out, remember to come out of the pose as you went in, opposite order, same sequence, opposite order. First, taking your hands to the floor, then taking your right knee down to the floor before moving forward, crawling forward to take your back knee out. Feel welcome to shake out your hips to do any transition that lets you integrate. And take a moment, just 5 breaths in any integration pose of choice, child's pose, seated meditation, resting on your back. Sense how it is to be in this new body. From head to toe to fingertip. And in your next breath or two, we'll begin to set up for pigeon pose, starting with the left leg, just to mix it up a little bit. Now, there are alternatives to pigeon pose. Here's one that you'll see on your screen, where you'll place the prop. Usually a bolster works nicely for this, as well as a sitting cushion. And you can place the prop at a position where it's not on your knee, but on your thigh. This will take pressure off the knee if you have a gap between your knee and the floor. Again, this is an interactive workshop, so feel welcome to interact with me if you're having trouble finding it. In some cases, this strategy may not work perfectly. You can take this variation, which is reclined pigeon pose, where you make the figure 4 and pull your knee forward. You can release the one leg if that's not quite enough stretch. So the basic is pigeon position. There's also deer pose where you bend your back leg at 90 degrees. So what you want here is a stretch going on in the back of your hip and side of your glute, underneath your glute actually. If you have questions or want some guidance, if it's not quite the full degree of stretch you would like, there's lots of creative options, not just that I just went through, but even lots of ones I did not go through. So please feel welcome to go to chat. We can find something that works for your body. Once you settle in, unplug. If you can unplug and simply be, let it be simple. Just do that. If your mind is not in the mood for that, then give it something to do. Focus on your breath down, massage your face or your scalp. Whatever lets you unplug from the outside. To sense natural home once again. Six more breaths. If it gets intense, breathe fuller. Notice any bracing and unplug from any tension against, any resistance against the bracing. And particularly after the long hold, you may wish to be extra careful in coming out of this, extra slow. If you practice yin yoga a lot, you may find you can just go right into the other side. However, it's super common to feel like you're almost like disconnected from your body here, kind of like your leg's been sawed off or something. It's not connected. If that's the case, you can shake your hip. You can move some hip circles around. You can do a few cow-cat type movements. Take some movements to help your nervous system reintegrate a sense of connection between your hip and body, whatever it takes. And then switch to the other side. Any variation of pigeon. Again, feel welcome to use me through the chat. Should be no pain in your knee. If intensity builds in the back of your hip, it should not be quite yet. You may wish to ease off. You can always increase the stretch by bringing your right foot more forward. Continue to notice any way that there may be a reflexive tensing against or bracing or resisting the intensity. when you unplug from the reactive, it will allow what is underneath to emerge. If the pose becomes barely bearable, it's an invitation to back off. Before it becomes unbearable, there is a tensing against it. Let your attention continue to simplify to the experience. Simplifying doesn't mean a lack of being attentive. It's in fact the opposite. Four more breaths. When you come out of the pose, come out gently. Shaking out or doing hip circles around your hip until your leg begins to feel like a part of your body again. Take a moment in integration, a seat, meditation, Shavasana. feel this body. Inside and out. Notice that after you do the yoga, you can let the yoga do you. Feel your breath. And as we set up for our next pose today, which is a supported Sphinx pose, this is going to be aimed to get into some of the deep musculature in the belly and the psoas. And if you do not have a blanket, you might even be better off without a blanket, using something like a towel instead, because a towel's smaller than a blanket. But we're going to use a little bit of a roll up to place pressure into the abdomen. And a blanket works well if you have specific devices at home, which I know some of you nerd out on this stuff like I do. So you may have specific devices at home for the psoas, like this thing. It's real fun, right? You can see that thing just digs right into the psoas. You can use that, but no need for any specific devices. You can take a towel or your yoga blanket. You'll see I have the blanket in a relatively thin profile here. It could be a little thicker than this, but generally you want it to like fit inside the boundary of your body. And roll it up. Probably not all the way. Probably just about thickness about there. And you'll come into Sphinx with the roll on your belly, centered roughly at about belly button level. And if you've not done psoas work before, you may find you get a rather peculiar sensation when you come into this. So Nina, you'll want yours to be thinner from right to left, so a little thinner than that. Same with Kelly, a little thinner from right to left. As long as you do not feel a strong pulse in your belly, you're safe. Also skip this if you're with child or attempting to be with child. The practice is to soften and let the roll into your abdominal cavity. The reflex is to defend the internal organs, to tense. The practice, and we'll only be here for 12 more breaths, just a dozen breaths. Is to surrender something. You don't have to surrender everything, just something. With each exhale. Let it move into your body with each exhale. Everyone has their own tolerance and where the capacity to surrender begins to diminish. You are welcome to remain here for another 6-7 breaths if you wish. If it's getting to the point where there's no more surrender, it just seems like you're bracing, definitely come out. If it gets to the point of intensity where it's a little bit too much, you can go ahead and come out at this time. Take a few belly breaths once you come out. You can take your time coming out of this. And once you take a few belly breaths, we'll come to a fours position where we'll come into some spontaneous cow cats. Now, if this is a new practice for you, the best way to go about it is just simply start rolling your cat right and left. You'll feel where there's tension spots, especially after you're releasing the psoas. There's often tension spots in your back that become available to stretch that weren't not available before. If you practice more of a spontaneous cow-cat where you can work it through your body, we'll move more into that spontaneous motion with a little bit more of creative consciousness becoming active. And for those of you that have an Udana Kriya practice, so like lion's breath would be the most common Udana Kriya, you can begin to add and play with some lion's breath in the middle of the motion, which is to focus in your belly. In your belly, you may feel after the psoas stretch a bit of an energetic frustration or a bit of an energetic potency there that needs to release. Sometimes it might feel like some old stagnant crap. And so you focus in the belly, you breathe in, and you begin to engage a committed exhale from your belly up through your mouth. It's like a, sometimes a little voice is helpful here. And let the energy carry. Now, if you're kind of new to this, it's all a little strange and feel welcome to experiment. Take a few more cycles. Spontaneous cow-cat. Lion's breath or Udana Kriya release. Take your time. And we'll begin to work our way toward a back stretch, which for most people tends to be plow. Now, the key to plow pose is to make sure that you are not putting it into your back. And there's lots of variations for to not put it into your neck. And there's lots of variations for this. I will put up on the screen some of these things that you can do here. So one option is just simply stay with some dynamic rolls or do a leg cross to the right or left is a good way to release the back. You can come into a tripod cat where you're going to push the floor and round your back toward the ceiling. This is another option that's great for targeting the low back, which is where we want to place the stretch, is right here in the arc of the low back, which you can also grab the heels for rabbit pose. Now, in addition to plow, which you see here, the goal of plow is not to touch the feet to the floor, but to get the maximum low back stretch. If you place the feet to the floor, it sometimes goes into your neck, and we want to keep it out of the neck. Another option for plow pose, if a lot of these are not feeling real great for your back or they're not real accessible, is to take a prop and move to the wall. And what you will do with this is you can take a bolster or a block and you will place it right underneath your neck. So it'll be right at your shoulder blades, as you see on the monitor. And then you're going to go up to the wall and lean into the wall. So this will take the pressure off your neck. And as you lean into the wall, the lean into the wall will begin to give you a lot more stretch here. Oh, thank you. The video's not playing. Sorry about that, guys. Can you guys see the video? Can you see the video now, Kate the Great? All right, technical glitch. Sorry about that. Okay, so hopefully you got a good back stretch going on. If you want a little guidance, hit me up in chat. You can also see what I'm talking about here with being up against the wall, which is you place the prop right at the spot of your shoulder blades. You lean into the wall. That gives you a back stretch. If your hamstrings are extra tight, you may need to bend your knees. Also, this position may not work for you. You may need to experiment a bit to find a position that lets your low back open. Once you have it, let the muscle tissue unwind. Ten more breaths. With a gentle roll up, we'll transition to the floor, not yet for Shavasana, though you may wish to gather props that you would like for Shavasana. As we come into this cool down, we're in a really nice place in the playlist as well. So if you'd like to turn up the playlist a little bit, feel welcome to increase the volume as we start to drop into the ground a little bit more here. And once you make your way where you have your props around you, we'll set up for a twist to one side with your left leg straight, your right leg up so you have 90-degree angles at all your joints, hip, knee, ankle. The twist will be to take your take your right leg across your body to your left. Now, if you get discomfort in your hip, your low back, your sacrum here, place a prop like a block or a stack of blocks or a bolster or some towels or some old clothes or some furniture, whatever you got, place the prop underneath your right knee. So that you can rest into gravity. And let gravity work its way through the entire chain of your spine. Notice if there are places in your upper back or your middle back that aren't getting the twist they could. You may be able to shift your body to help the twist move all the way through your spine, the places where it does not habitually go. The practice of yoga is to unplug from the habit. To undo. Untense. Let the essence underneath reveal. And very gently switch sides. 2 more breaths. Gently bringing yourself out of the twist. Make any movements or shift any props to help you land into final Shavasana. And allow your skin to soften. As if the waves of sound the tones, the waves of the ocean could pulsate through your skin. As if each wave, each pulsation could flow through your skin, through the muscle and bone. Soften. As if to allow every pulsation to flow all the way through skin, muscle, and bone and back out again. Every pulsation moving through you. Without sticking. As each grand wave fills your space, and returns back. As you feel your body as you let the pulsation flow through, continue to drop deeper in stillness. Feel welcome to spend more time here. This may be the reset you need. The deeper unplugging. If you're on a time container or ready to conclude today's practice, you can begin to breathe a little deeper, begin to gently wiggle fingers and toes. And be gentle in transition. As to not jolt or jar anything you've cultivated. And feel welcome to simply lie here, continue to rest. Give your body the gift of everything that can happen when it returns home. If you are concluding on the time container, you're welcome to join in a closing seat. With hands at heart center. In closing today's practice with one Om, or just simply a listen from your next inhale. It is in the simple, in the silence, where we can unplug our energy from where it is usually or habitually stuck. In this unplugging, we come back home. Namaste.